Hello, I'm Ian.
And I'm Darren.
And welcome to the Average Bikers in a Cave, a show where a group of bikers chat and share opinions about all things motorbike, from news, reviews, interviews and the big questions. If you like what you hear, then be sure to subscribe, tell your friends and leave us a review.
So what's on today's show? Well, there's our usual ramblings and nonsense. We have an update from our adventure day at West Coast Harley with a couple of possible upcoming guests. We have some news from the biking world, and we'll tackle this week's big question. What is your last big road this season? This week's episode is sponsored by Afterground, an exceptional drone, wedding, portraiture and events photography and videography company that specialises in capturing video and images on the ground and in the air, in a style that is modern yet timeless, interesting and vibrant, with a focus on exhilarating moments and pure fun. Using their experience, skills and knowledge, they will work with you to ensure your videos and photos are exactly the way you want them. For more information or to chat to the team, head over to www.afterground.com or check out their Facebook page. Check-in time. I suppose there's only one major check-in.
It's a bit of a joint check-in, really, isn't it?
It's a bit of a joint check-in.
You know, and we don't mean that we're looking at each other's knees. Do you know what I mean?
No. Or anything else.
Or anything else. Call it. Yeah, the adventure weekend at the Harley of Davidson's.
The Harley of Davidson's in the coast of the West.
Actually, talking about Harley Davidson, I actually said to my brother, I said, you should have called your daughter Harley. No, sorry, you should have called your son Harley. See when he's going to tell a joke, right? And then it doesn't work, right? I was like, I'll try again. Zip. I said to my brother, I said, you should have called your son Harley, and then that way, when you introduce me and say, this is Harley David's son. Because my brother's called David. Aye. I suppose it helps if you knew that little bit of nugget of information for that joke.
Where's my tumbleweed button? You don't have a tumbleweed button, you're safe. Yeah, Harley Adventure Weekend. Because that was like, this is what, we're now a couple of weeks on.
Aye,
for that weekend. Which it doesn't seem like a couple of weeks on. It seems like about a month ago. Do you know what I mean? But it was only a couple of weeks ago.
I'm still haunted by it. More about that later.
Aye, you can cover that in your check-in.
I will do.
You can actually go first then. Or do we just kind of pick the bones at it?
Pick the bones at it because we get some, there's some really cool stuff that, there's some stuff you did, there's some stuff I did, there's some stuff that we both tried, which is really good. You know what I mean? So, yeah, go. Pick your bones.
Pick your bones. Well, when we first got there, the very first thing I saw was ear molds.
Yep.
Which I completely wasn't expecting to be at the adventure show. So, a shout out to Cheryl and Rob from...
Oh, just a question, did they fit you when you got them?
Oh,
or did you have to get them bigger?
And again, the little nugget is Cheryl and Rob, they're actually based in Biggar in Scotland. So
I'm here all week, try the veal. So
try the venison. But yeah, it was quite good chatting with those guys, and obviously me and my wife both decided we're going to get a pair. So they've arrived, and it's weird at first. I'm going to be honest. Remember when you were a kid and you used to fold your ears over on itself? I
never did that. Maybe that's just you.
Okay. No. I've talked to other people who definitely did it, so it wasn't just me.
Fine.
But it's that whole kind of. Initially, it feels like a bit underwater, but not in a disorientating way. Just kind of muffled. However, if you're going anywhere that's got, I went to see Colin last night, and I just went straight along the motorway without I think about it. I just went, I'll just go the quickest way there, and you don't notice the wind.
Well,
it's just frightening how much, and I don't mean that. You mean the wind's still there, but you just don't seem to be affected by it in any way. You definitely don't hear the noise, and I could still hear comms, music. Sat-nav was giving me directions and stuff, which was interesting because Waze gave me an update before I went. So I've changed from Boy George to Master Chief from Halo,
nice.
Which is great. Other than when you come up to a pothole and it does say hazard up front, be careful, it could be a trap.
That's
You're
good, cool.
like, yeah, no, it's just a pothole. Thanks for that.
Fine.
But aye, big shout out to Cheryl and Rob. Rob's actually signed up for his advanced riding next year.
Excellent. Good luck, Rob.
So he's quite looking forward to that. But yeah, the ear molds, I would highly recommend them. So if anyone's interested, have a look. Go onto Facebook, look at ear molds at CCM Laboratories, and have a check. They do multicolour. You can get them just straight earplugs. You can get them with filters in them. I got the ones with filters in them because I like to hear my music and stuff.
See when when I met up with you, you were sitting in a chair getting something shoved in your ear, weren't you?
Was that the same day? Aye. I was getting the kind of resiny stuff. That's
so. I take it then if you're going to order, you have to go to them, or they
Aye, I don't think they do.
They don't send you a kit out to.
No, I don't think they send you a kit out. Again, I never actually asked because it was just a case of, we're there, because that's the problem living where we live, is if you want to get them done by some of the other companies that are out there, you have to kind of get your ears impressioned at is it an audiologist? You have to go and book the appointment. In most places, I think it's about 30 quid to get your impressions taken, and then you send them that, and they take the 30 quid off of the price and stuff like that. So they're all much the same kind of rough price.
Right.
I think the custom fit guards is one of the other ones, and they're about, I think for the V2s, they're about roughly 110 quid.
Oh, right, okay.
And that's with a little filter in them. The ear molds are 95 for that, and then 75 for just the straight through ones. But they're ideal, and you get them much quicker because they obviously then just scoot the actual stuff straight into your ear and make the form, and then they take it back to the lab and kind of rattle it off within. I think it was about 8 days in total.
That was not bad. That sounds really good.
Do you know what I mean? And that's including like a weekend, so it's not that bad. But aye, check them out. They're really quite good. Bit tricky getting it first, right enough, because you're not used to them. But once you get that knack, you kind
of cover them in, don't you? You kind of pop them in.
Aye, pull your earlobe down and pop it in the canal,
right,
and then just twist it. And then what you do is I just pull my ear up at the top, and it just sinks in beautifully.
Oh, right,
it's
nice.
Great. And again, the helmet on and off, not an issue.
Cool.
So
check them out, folks. Earlobes at CCM Laboratories.
Yes.
And then the next thing we did was we walked over and saw the guys at Roars. R-O-R-S.
The Ride Off Road.
Yeah.
Scotland. And I'm going to let you talk about this because you went first.
I did go first, and
no warning when you came off it, because I was going on it kind of after you. No warning to say, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it.
Aye, no, it was brilliant fun, right? It was great fun, but it was physically quite exhausting, and it was pissing. It was peeing with rain.
It was absolutely chucking.
There.
Aye.
It was chucking it down, and this kind of uneven bit of wasteland. Really, they'd set the course up round on a 250cc bike, enduro bike, wasn't it? And it was, and it's just a totally different way of riding a bike, you know.
And it's not totally different. That 250. You mean you were in first gear for about the first 20 minutes or so?
Aye, absolutely.
And it's so tetchy, wasn't it? It was like,
I was just
trying to get the.
And you did not sit on the bike. That was the whole point. Was you do not sit on the bike.
No. Did you notice at first though when you stood next to the bike, you went, "That's quite tall," and then you sat on it and it went, "Oh," and it sunk away down because obviously it's got quite but suspension.
But it was still quite tall for me.
How was it?
As were other bikes during that day. Talk about it.
We'll come on to that.
But so that was Kevin Murray. I think Kevin was the guy that was doing all the coaching, wasn't it? He was the one that was there out the bikes with the gun. He's a previous Scottish and British champion, and he took us through the paces of the basics of it, about motocross riding. I was on it for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, because I kind of tried to jump the queue because I was supposed to be later on and jumped the queue because it was quiet. Didn't try any of the obstacles. There were a couple of like barrels and kind of, was it big tyres, wasn't it, and things to jump over?
The big tyres and sleepers.
But I was just happy to go around the course without falling off. So, you know, and I don't think I've squeezed my knees together quite so hard on a field tank.
It's a weird technique.
It's bizarre,
because you're literally on the balls of your feet, with your toes pointed in,
and
your knees pointed in, The rest
Yeah,
he's
you look
pointing
like
out the way.
they look you're holding some sort of evacuation. That's it, like, you know what I mean. So,
But then you've got to drop your heels. You've got to drop your heels a bit to actually gear that kind of
gear up,
spring.
spring and bouncing your knees, and then of course for folk that aren't used to this, you've got 2 fingers on the clutch and 2 fingers on the handle, and your handlebar
Aye.
as well. Try to control while holding onto the bike, which was
Well, gonna
well going over
bumpy
bumps, which became
terrain.
really sore really quickly. If
Aye,
you're not used
it
to
did.
that, absolutely.
it did.
You know, these guys must have an iron grip. They must be like, I must be like an action man with the
Well, I was
the kung
taught.
fu grip.
So apparently, the British Superbike, the actual see the race for to determine the British Superbike champion, apparently is an 8-hour race. A Scottish championship is 4 hours.
Wow.
Could you imagine riding like that for 4 hours? You'd be crippled.
I was absolutely. I mean, the sweat was pouring off me.
Oh, aye.
My hand was like somebody else's hand. I couldn't half feel half it, and that was 25 minutes.
Aye, and I was on it for 45
you
minutes
were on it.
because I thought you're only on it for 25 minutes. I thought, that's fine. 25 minutes, great. And then I can come back and there's other things on it at the same time, which I'm going to kick myself about. But there you go. Certainly somebody was having his first chat at that point,
which was really good.
Aye, thanks for that.
Yeah, that's all right.
But it turns out no, we're going to go for the full 45 minutes, and it was, as you say, it was excruciating.
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't know where the sweat and the rain stopped.
Aye.
It was just like amalgamate. That's why if you see our pictures online
Mm-hmm.
with a certain adventure bike hero of mine, we looked dishevelled
I know.
because it was literally just straight after the event.
Actually, and for those of you that know what I look like, which is probably very few of you, those pictures made me remove all my long hair, because there was points when I just looked like Joe Exotic for the Tiger King or whatever it was, and I was like, right, just get that haircut. Do you know what I mean? It was like the worst 80s mullet-esque thing I noticed standing there, you know, and I thought, that's it, it's got to go.
Aye, I looked at that picture and went, well, I'll tell you what I thought. But one of the things I did think is that white T-shirt's not getting put back on again. Even though it's got our logo on it, it's still not getting put back on again. So
that was good. I would do it again in a heartbeat, though. I would like to go and do it for like a day. And
well, you
take my
talked
time
about
and-
going and maybe doing it with John.
Exactly, yeah. So, but I
Cool.
wasn't going to say that to you. It was going to be a surprise. But now that you've mentioned the podcast,
I'll just cut it out.
here's hoping he's not listening.
I'll just cut it out. It's not live. It's
No.
fine. While I don't know what you went and listened to the talk.
So I went to listen to Mr. B.
Aye,
Yeah.
which we'll come on to in a
Come on
minute.
up,
And
yeah.
while I was out doing that, my wife was having a chat with a guy called Tim Bradshaw.
Lovely
Who
man.
is
Lovely man.
who-
Such a nice guy.
Did you have a chat with him?
Chatted with him while I was kind of hanging about waiting to get a wee shot.
Oh, did you?
So
So he's part of a thing called Project Dakar 2023. Now we never, again, it'd be great to get an actual sit down and a proper chat with him, and I never saw his actual chat because we were away chasing Mr. B. But he did a whole thing on stage. But he's agreed. He spoke to Nicola and said he would love to come on and have a chat just about
Yeah.
Project Dakar and all that kind of good stuff. But just for you guys listening, Project Dakar 2023 it's a kind of movement that those guys have started, and they're using the hashtag because I can, which is more about an attitude of not giving up and not letting things get to you and pushing through to be successful at whatever it is you decide to do. So they're taking this mantra, I'm going to call it a mantra because I like the word mantra.
it's a great word,
but it is.
mantra. Yeah.
But they're taking this mantra and they're applying it to the planning, the training, and the actual driving forward with a challenge. And that challenge is to participate in the 2023 Dakar Rally, which is, if anybody knows, it's 14 days. It's across umpteen, I think they're about 1,000, average 1,000 kilometres a day. It's absolutely mental. If no one's seen Race to Dakar, which is one of Charley Boorman's kind of adventures, check it out and you'll get a flavour of what it is. Then the Dakar Rally for 2023 is in Saudi Arabia, so shed loads of sand. But Tim Bradshaw is actually the team captain. He's a former British Army captain. He's climbed Mount Everest and the Matterhorn. He's a novice rider, but they're going to take him from novice rider and they're going to train him up so that he's competent enough to actually compete in the Dakar. The other two guys that are in the team with him is a guy called Dave McGee, who 20 years ago was actually told he only had 8 months to live, and he's he's now gone off to do the the Dakar Rally. He was a motocross rider when he was a schoolboy, and kind of drifted away from that and ended up becoming a professional drummer.
As you do. Drums.
You're thinking, my ears aren't getting damaged enough by doing motocross, I'm going to take up the drums as a sideshow. But in 2023...
But if he goes to ear molds, that's his same laboratories.
Exactly.
Protect his ears.
And Dave's going to turn 50 in 2023. So he'll be 50 when he does the Dakar. So he's still got plenty of time to get those ear molds and protect his ears.
Yeah.
And then the last guy who we've already talked about is Kevin Murray, who was the head coach at the Ride-Off Road School, who we went out and did a bit with.
Yep. Or as we call him, the sadist, because he kept you going for 45 minutes in that bike.
Aye. And when he then got to the point to say, do you want to go the tyres? And I was like, no, I'm kind of done. I'm beat. You've won. Congratulations. But Kevin's essentially, he's going to be the coach and the rider. So he's going to train the guys up and get them up to speed. So we'll reach out to those guys and we're going to get those guys, I think, in for a chat.
Yeah, cool.
Or remote for a chat.
Yep.
Just to get because I think the more I've read about, especially Tim Bradshaw, the more I've read about him, the more I'm thinking and reading and going, this guy's like a legend. He's just all the stuff that he's done and seen,
and he's like such an unassuming man, wasn't he? So nice and just
he was just
lovely, gentle, chatty.
I was going to say like a gentle
guy.
giant,
Aye.
you know what I mean? Because he was
so nice. Such a cool guy,
and it's a really cool thing they're doing. And I think even the support team are getting trained up, so that even the support team that's gone with them, and they still need to ride an element of the Dakar. The support team, they maybe not do the full special stage and stuff like that, but they definitely travel the same route because they've got to go between stops and stuff like that, so that they are there and set up for the guys coming in, so that the guys can go to sleep and they can work on the bikes to get them ready for the next morning and stuff. So it's quite a challenging thing. So good luck to those guys, but we'll hopefully get them in the coming weeks, because that'll be interesting. What happened after that?
After that, well, the whole point of the adventure weekend, obviously it's Harley Davidson, so they're trying to sell you something, right? So, okay, it's their business, they've got to do it. So it was all about getting a slot and getting a shot on the Harley Davidson Pan American. Yeah. Which
I did have a slot for, and then they phoned me and went, "You've taken this out. Do you really need?" Because we're really struggling for spaces, and I went, "That's fine."
And then, ironically, because of the really rubbish weather, they started losing spaces because folk didn't turn up because it was pouring rain. So I got to take out the Pan American, right? Woo-hoo. Yeah, which I will tell you what happened when I took out the Pan American.
Well, tell us first, how did you find
it? So basically, I was 95% in love with the Pan American. I was probably 100% in love with the Pan American and 100% in pure hatred of my wee short legs. That's probably the best way to put it. It is a big bike. I got one with the adaptive ride height.
Yep.
And the seat, as far as I was aware, was at its lowest position.
Yep.
And I was struggling to get my toes on the ground because I'm such a wee short thing. Yeah. And so because of that, I was a wee bit wobbly, just heading off. And at one point, but when I was on the bike and riding it, the bike is so smooth, and it's like super fast. And I didn't take off a rain mode because of the weather, and it was still super, super fast, right? So I just loved riding the bike.
Aye.
The gear changes were smooth. The torque and the overtaking was just incredible. We took it around a lot of the village roads round about Houston, Kilmacombe, Nick of the Woods, that kind of Langbank, all those kind of places in the West Coast there, and it was just so much fun to ride until I had to try and slow it down and stop it, and then I just panicked and I was like, oh my god, I'm not getting my feet down. However, for most of the ride I was fine. Yay! Most of the ride. There was one point when we were going along and we all pulled in to just let him catch up, and I felt the bike just go slightly to one side. And I just put my foot down and held on to it. And the guy that was taking everybody out saw that, jumped off his bike and came and helped me push it back up. So I didn't, do anything bad.
Who was taking you in?
Oh, God, I can't remember his name now. I'm terrible with names, so that's the trouble.
Was it Don?
It was Don, yes, thank you. It was Don.
The owner of West Coast.
Yes, it was Don, right. So, and actually, when West Coast was over in Glasgow City Centre, years and years ago, I did some photography for them. years and years ago, and it was down there, of course. So I meant to say that to him, but I was too embarrassed because of what happened later on the bike. Right. So I was taking around again. Got it back up and running. He's like, you okay? You okay? And I was like, I'm absolutely fine. My heart's racing because I thought I was going to drop your bike. You know, if I thought that all I had to worry about was almost dropping the bike, then I'd be quite happy. But however, so later on, literally within 2 minutes of getting up the road, my worst nightmare happened. And the thing about the adaptive ride height and the Harley is, if you come to a stop slowly, the bike adjusts and it gives you time to get your foot down, right?
Yep.
But the trouble was that I had to make an emergency stop on the bike at a really horrible wee junction just outside Harley. And you know that junction, right?
It's on a hill, slight camber, and it's such a blind.
And the vehicle in front of me had to stop quickly, but that person had longer legs than me. I stopped, and the bike just didn't get low enough in time, and it just tipped over the edge of that balance point, just that wee inch too much, and I basically did an assisted tip.
Just a nice gentle.
Lay this on the ground as I leap off and look sadly embarrassed. However, testament to the rigidity and the sturdiness of the Harley Davidson. Myself and the guy behind me jumped off, and we lifted the bike back up, and there wasn't a mark on it.
Right.
Actually, wasn't a mark on it. That's how good those Pan Americans actually are. So I think if I was to, I would love one, right? If I could just drop that height by about an inch to an inch and a half.
Right.
I'd just be like super confident, because and I said there wasn't like a wee curb. I was trying to see if there was a curb or something I could just get my foot onto for the stop. So I think if I could drop that height down a tiny wee bit, and I presume there'll be ways you could
probably scoop the seat a bit,
scoop some of the stuff out the seat a bit, maybe just adjust something in it that would do it. Then I would love the bike, but it's still a big bike for, you know what I mean. I got on my Triumph to go home and I felt like I was on a toy. You know, that's sweet. I was like, and I was, but so 100% loved the bike, loved the how smooth it was, loved cornering. My God, it was amazing going around corners.
It's
right?
So
it's
so
smooth,
easy, isn't it?
It's so easy, right? But 100% hate my wee short legs, which is why I'm super excited about the Sportster, because it's got that engine in it, but torquey.
I know,
and
it's not as if the engine that's in the Pan America. That 12, it's just because that's just the Rev Max 1250 straight as it is.
As it is.
It's not as if it's missing any torque. It's tons of torque. Whereas the Sportster S, they've tweaked it to get more torque. Yeah. And you're thinking,
So I'm super excited about that. Cannot wait to go. As long as Harley Davidson are quite happy for me to take another bike out, Ironically, I thought it was quite funny. They did send me an email about a week later saying, now that you've had a wee hour out in the bike, do you want to take it out for another couple of hours? And I'm like, no, sorry, thanks. No, unless I get platform heels. Do you know what I mean? So, although I believe you can buy more bike boots that have got bigger heels, so you can touch the ground.
Daytona,
yeah.
Daytona boots will get a wee heel on them.
So there you go. So
Cuban effort.
Absolutely loved the bike. Right, loved it. Loved the screen, all the toys, the way the interface and everything on it. I thought it was brilliant. But it was just. I mean,
just a smidgen
too tall for me, Aye. But it does make me super excited for that Sportster.
Aye,
when I get a wee shot of it.
I would agree with that. I think the fact that they're tweaking it to get more torque is just it's frightening. Yeah.
But I got a shot in it. It was great, and apart from that wee blip, also didn't help that my foot went down on gravel and it slid. Do you know what I mean? It was just
it's a horrible road. I don't know why MD would take MD up that road.
I know. Actually, there was a bit of me that wished I'd taken the left-hand turn just before that junction, and it would have taken me in a wee farm road, back road into Harley,
along by the cemetery and pop straight out. And that was if I was leading it, that's the way I would have taken you. Purely because it's a wee bit more gravelier, but it's an adventure bike. It'll handle the gravel, no bother. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to
I had no issues with that
handling, and it's quite steep.
It's just a horrible. It's that horrible kind of wee steepy, slidey kind of way, And it was just a perfect match of misfortunes. But anyway, the bike was fine. The bike was absolutely fine. But I think I was jinxed though, because when I sat on the bike ready to go leave Harley, they said, "Can you just wait a minute?" And they taped up the front screen because somebody dropped it in the ride before me.
Oh, did they?
So I'm like, I've got a jinx bike here. So that was maybe playing in my
maybe
head.
no, the bike. It's just it maybe wasn't you or short legs. It was just the bike was jinxed.
Aye, possibly. I'll blame that.
I would go with that.
We'll blame
Let's
the
go with
supernatural forces, shall we?
Aye.
In we go. So anyway, there you go. So that's what happened to me on the ride, but still great.
It was good to see them all pulling it
Aye.
because they had a couple of different variants in
did.
terms of colours.
I think mine was the kind of dark green,
Aye,
kind of army green one.
which is-
Beautiful,
aye,
beautiful
which
colour.
was surprisingly, and I've seen that on I think it was a fat Bob, which is the one with the pill box light. I'm sure.
Aye.
And there was I've seen that in that colour, and it looks like it does look like a modern
Yeah.
old army bike.
Yeah.
It's quite nice. But I still like the Baja orange.
Yeah.
It's just I'm mostly keen on the white bit. I mean, if we could just get it black with the Baja orange, that'd be
cool.
lovely.
Absolutely.
Maybe
we
next
go.
year when I come to buy one, they'll have new colours.
But of course, I also, when you were on your Rose thing, they sat and listened to one of your heroes.
We should have a drum roll button, but I don't have a drum roll button.
No, that's fine. We can add it in post.
I'll add it. Aye. Drum roll.
There we go.
And there we go.
So, and that was, of course, Mr. Charley
Boorman.
Yes, who chatted away about his, the long way up, long way down, long way down stuff. Chatted away about the Dakar thing. Chatted away about his injuries, about his big injury when he was the Triumph rep and all that. And, it was just a genuine delight to stand and listen to. And it was because of the weather. Everybody was under that tent cover thing, and I just stood outside. There was no space, and I didn't really care. Well, I was getting soaked because it was so interesting.
Aye, because you had been soaked for 25 minutes.
And it's on a outdoor
Seen
thing.
that in the sweat.
Aye,
You
the
were
sweat.
quite
I wasn't
happy
caring.
just to get a shower.
Aye, exactly. So Charlie, which was fascinating. Yeah, and then Dan and I decided to chase him round.
Jason wasn't he did make it because of that weekend was his and mine's birthday weekend.
Many happy returns.
I think I'm obviously Charlie's that 10 years older than me, just making it perfectly clear. No offence, Charlie, if you're listening. So we decided he'd obviously jokingly said about if anybody wants to bring me a birthday present, bring me a birthday present. Which I don't think many people did. One guy had brought me a bottle of whiskey.
It was about a bottle of malt, to be nice.
Aye,
To be
and
fair.
I was like, well, I kind of felt cheap going up after that because obviously we had just gotten some average bikers in a cave memorabilia. Well, not even memorabilia. It's like prototypes.
Aye.
So
But then he is the guy for prototypes. If you watch The Long Way Up, that's a prototype.
exactly.
So,
And it's not as if
Charlie, if you're listening, you are the prototype man.
it's not as if he can't use it. We did get him like one of the t-shirts that we've got, and then we
Right.
got him like an apron because he was on Master Chef and
Exactly.
he does like cooking. So I thought, well, that. And if worst comes to worst, he can always just cut them up and use them for chamois
Exactly. Yep.
or painting cloths or whatever he decides
Whatever he wants to
choose
do.
them. He'll always look at it and go, "That was the two idiots that I met in Glasgow."
The guy that looked like Joe Exotic.
Aye. And the other guy who was sweating to death.
That's it. Aye.
But what was and the I think I was more, I don't want to say starstruck because he doesn't give you the opportunity I think to get that way because he's just so
He just
approachable.
talks to you like, so approachable, so nice.
But then obviously we'd said about the fact that we'd started the podcast this year and blah blah blah, and then the first thing he said was,
Send me a message and I'll come on. I said, sorry, I cut you repeat, please.
I don't even think that came out. I think I got.
I'm pretty sure, if listeners, this is exactly what happened with Danny. Charlie said, send me a message, I'd love to come on, and I mean,
Aye,
that was it, wasn't it?
either that or it was that scene in Star Wars where you first meet Han Solo,
Aye.
and I wasn't Han Solo. I was the other guy on the other side of the table going, "Oh, hey, gee,
So, it was absolutely brilliant, and we chatted away to him, didn't we? Got some pickies taken, as you would have seen on the social
we
media
did get some
page.
pictures taken. Highlight of my life, other
yeah.
than my kids, allegedly.
Aye. Do your kids listen to this?
No,
Well, then you're fine.
no.
Crack on.
this will be the one episode that they decide to listen to though. But he was just such an approachable guy.
Lovely.
He was quite happy to chat away. He took loads of pictures, and then he went away for lunch at that point.
And I think he went out for a ride because some people would get. I think people who'd pre-ordered Pan Americans or whatever got to go out on a ride with him, didn't
aye, they did.
he? He'd take them out for a wee ride kind of
You're
thing.
like, can you imagine being out on a bike that isn't yours,
Right.
right? Unless they were taking their own bikes, in which case, fair enough. But you imagine being out on a ride and you can go, I've been on a ride out with Charley Boorman. I would have been like that. That's me done. I can just go now. Just, do you know, if you want to come and get me, lords, I'm here waiting. Just take me away. After lunch, though, he did come out and do another talk, which was quite funny.
And I missed that because I was too busy out dropping bikes, riding bikes.
Aye, that's exactly what you were doing. Ironically, and this made me laugh so much, and it made him laugh, and he obviously made the best of it. We talked about a few things. You mean similar kind of ilk along the same lines as the talk he done earlier in the morning, because again, not everybody got to see both. But the minute they started to say, so you've just obviously a long way up's been done and it's came out, and it's like, what was your kind of thought process or inspiration behind going electric? And everything cut out. The mic cut out, and it was like
power loss.
Aye, total power loss. Aye, boo. No, and just in that wee kind of, what was it? It was almost like a little trailer.
Like a trailer thing,
up,
trailer presentation thing,
like
events,
like
thing.
a mobile stage thing. And the power died in it on the mic and stuff, and which was so funny, and everybody was kind of laughing and going, "Oh, typical." But at that point, he just literally came down off the stage. And he came into where we were all sitting in that wee tent, and he was just chatting away, and he went, I'll just continue, and kind of kept going, ever the professional, chatting away. And then he caught everybody by surprise and just said, listen, anybody get any questions while we're waiting? And I think everybody that was sat in there at that point went, me personally, I was sat going, right, wait man, I've got about 40 questions. What one will I ask him? And the first one that came to my head was, do you still talk to KTM? And he just laughed, and he went, and then he told a little anecdote about KTM and how he was at an event, and the kind of CEO for KTM was there, and somebody had asked a similar question, and the guy he didn't lose it, but he was like, oh, honestly, if I had £1 for every time somebody's asked that question, and blah, 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 and you're thinking, aye, somebody must have got the sack for that one.
Aye.
You know what I mean? But he was, genuinely nice guy, and when we were, you shot off, I think, about the back of 3.
Yeah, back of 3, roughly.
Back of 3, when it was starting to kind of quieten down a bit, we hung about again.
And ironically, when the rain stopped.
Well, at least you didn't drop your own bike.
Aye, that's true.
We hung about, I think, for about another hour or so after that, because we were having a coffee and a blether and stuff like that with some of the hog guys. But on our way out the door, Charlie was standing kind of down near the entrance, and I was just for walking by, quite the thing. You know what I mean? Ever the big shy guy. But my wife, being as bold as brass,
she is so good at that stuff, isn't she?
Wandered straight at her and went, listen, it was really good to meet you. It was a pleasure to meet you, because she had obviously been chatting to him about her bike and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, he says, oh, it was really good to meet you, and thanks for coming, and blah, blah, blah. And then he looked at me and went, remember, either go into my website and get my email address and send me an email, or just DM me on Instagram, and we'll set up a wee interview for the podcast. And I was like, oh, okay.
We love you, Charlie.
I had to go home and change my undies.
Yes.
It was so good.
Yeah, I did too, but that was only because I after dropping the bike.
Because I bounced somebody else's bike.
Yeah. I think the only thing that made it okay for dropping the bike was that it wasn't a West Coast bike I dropped, it was Harley's bike.
It was Harley's, so
yeah,
West Coast.
It's fine, whatever. Yeah.
That's right.
And when I got back, I did say to the guy, and that's what the guy said. He said, there's no mark on your bike. He said, that is how good they are.
Aye, and again, they were obviously having a big kind of drive on what was left, because they obviously have an allocation of stock, as does any franchise at the start of the season or start of the year. They'll allocate, or they'll request so much stock for the manufacturer. Yeah. And obviously Pan America is one of those ones that everybody's been dying for them.
I think
so they had.
I think if they could bring it up, I know it's now like Triumph will get a Pan America. They do the Tiger Low. If they could get away of just getting that Pan America dropped a couple of inches for wee people.
Aye, even just put a slightly smaller like shock and front fork on it or something like that.
Exactly, just something that just takes it down that wee bit, just that wee bit more for people.
Aye, even making it that little bit more. So, prime examples, BMW's midweight sports bike no sports bike,
Adventure.
adventure bike was the 850.
Aye.
But they did a street version, which was a 750, and that was for the guys that were never going to take it off road.
Aye.
So you could get like cast wheels and all that kind of stuff for it. But I'm sure that was slightly lower as well because it didn't need the big massive clearance.
It was. I went into BMW's Motorrad, isn't it?
Aye.
Before it moved to East Kilbride. It's East Kilbride, isn't it?
No, it's in Glasgow. It was in East Kilbride.
Was it back in Glasgow now?
Aye.
It was when it was out in Bishopbriggs, right?
Oh, was it?
And basically, I sat on. I was like, I can't go. Those bikes are too big for me.
Aye.
And he said, no. And he put me on the low one, and it was fine.
Aye.
It was tippy toe a bit, but I felt I had grounding. And I said that's great. He said, well, basically we just took all the stuff in it. He said, so the seat.
Aye, just enough to get
enough to still be comfortable enough, but
and you could probably do the same. You know, I mean, with the Pan America, you could probably, but if you're, I suppose it depends how much you're taking it and how much you would sacrifice against comfort.
Aye.
Or Harley could just come out with something that's just that wee tad lower again.
Aye, yeah, I know.
Even just make it so that it's.
I suppose it depends. If they're selling enough of them, they don't need to try to find another demographic.
It's hard to tell because it's early days. It's that you mean this is the first opportunity they've had to launch an adventure bike. So
if I had a slightly longer leg, I would have probably signed up for one that day because I just loved it so much.
Really?
Other than that, I really did.
Wow.
You know, I had a risk divorce.
Hi, honey, I'm home.
Because it still felt a bit, you know, as opposed to.
It still has that element of that kind of feel of Harley about it.
Yeah,
it still has a kind of there's something there, and I don't know if it's the fact that it's got that much torque that if you're going along in fifth gear and you just twist it still just pulls away.
Aye.
Which Harleys typically do, or if it's just something about that. If they've tuned that engine to get some sort of grumble that a normal big
it was just a little beast. But then I started rewatching when I came back from the adventure, and obviously we met Charley and everything. I went back on a long way up.
Aye,
and now I want an electric bike. Now I actually want an electric bike because it sounds like John.
Aye.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll have a wee chat with West Coast.
If West Coast are really nice, because I think I've checked the dimensions of the live wire, and I think I'm okay in that. So
I think we could do a wee double done on that. And maybe let us take. I've ridden the live wire, but I'd quite happily get and ride it again because it's just like nothing else you've ridden before.
But I am seriously tempted to get my next bike. Could potentially be an electric bike. Seriously, I've looked at a few now.
I think the Harley price for all right now it's still expensive. In the States, it's dropped. In the States, they've dropped
20,000 in the States, is it not?
Aye, they've dropped it by
quite a bit.
It's almost a third. It's 30%. And I think they'll do it very similar here. So
I would be solely tempted because I'd honestly, I was so taken by that bike on long way up.
Aye,
you know, and I know they made it a bit more adventure and higher road and everything, but I just went the whole, and it is the future. You know what I mean? You can get up to £10,000 interest-free loan from the government. You can help towards your electric motorcycle.
You can also write it off as carbon neutral. So you can write electric vehicles. You can write off if you're a business.
There you go.
Just saying.
I know you. Don't worry, we're looking into it. So, you know, but then there's a whole lot. Maybe we should probably do a wee podcast on all the new electric bikes that are out there.
We do. I've been collecting a whole load of stuff just on electric and the technology and stuff like that. So,
and as a slight aside on electric, just while I remember, because how cool were those trucks? Long way up.
I would have one of them. I would have one of them.
They were just incredible. I was like, they took everything flung at them.
And we never. I was reading up about Rivian not that long ago actually, and they
look on their website.
Well, they're in discussions with the UK government to use one of the existing factories of somewhere that's shut down. I don't know if it's Coventry or somewhere like some kind of middle to lower England, to set up their factory for Europe here.
Wow.
Which would be amazing, because then you would start to see them going about, and you would be like, oh, it's solely tempting. Just again, it's got, and the fact that you can tow them to charge them.
That's brilliant.
It's
Isn't it?
just genius.
Aye,
Do you know what I
absolute
mean?
genius.
I do like the ravines.
Average bikers in the cave talking about pickup trucks.
Aye, electric pickup trucks.
Electric
at
pickup
that,
trucks,
you know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah,
We've moved away from bikes and combustion. We're talking about electric.
exactly.
Aye.
But I was looking at the Endura and the Energy car. Is it Energy car?
Energy car, aye,
And
which is supposed to get the best all-round distance
the,
on a single charge.
yeah, aye,
But again, they are expensive.
yeah.
But
The Damon was one of the cheapest as well. And they do it
mint
in yellow.
and they do it. It's not. It's just it's bike.
And it still get 200 to 300 miles range. It's claiming.
I know.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, obviously that's when you buy the extended battery and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Aye,
It's like I think it's
but even
120 miles.
even if you get 150 mile
Aye.
out of charge.
I think it's 120 to 200 roughly, on the normal battery. You know.
Aye, the only time you're going to be affected then is if you are going to go and do like a big tour.
Aye.
You're going to have to plan it so that you're stopping and charging, which again, hopefully by that point, charging stations have picked up. They're all L3, they're all super fast charging. It's like 40 minutes and you get 80% or whatever,
Aye.
and then you're
And
quids in.
It's not too bad at all. You know.
So
Cool. There we go. So that was any more check-in for you? I think that's and just on a non-adventure weekend check-in, John's mutt.
yes.
Finally the mirrors arrived for your man in Wales.
Oh, wicked.
Which is brilliant, you know, and this is not. Gavin was brilliant about sending them, and they get sent back. The post office basically mucked it up, and he sent all the stuff. We got it back. So that's John replaced his indicators, and did his new mirror and everything. And he is as happy as a pig in poo. He was up this weekend on the mutt constantly chatting about. So
Starting about
Yeah.
enjoying himself.
exactly, give an excuse to buy new spanners, ratchet spanners.
What gives you
Aye.
an excuse? Aye, John, buy your dad a snap-on set. Come on, sort it out.
Oh, I know, if only. No, it's just cheapo Amazon.
See, talking about I know we're talking about pickup trucks or the ravine pickup trucks. Well, we'll need to pop that into our question list. So we've been coming up with questions for Charlie for when he comes on, trying to think kind of outside the box and stuff that people haven't already asked him, because you must get tired of answering the same questions over and over and over again.
Wow.
So we're trying to think of stuff that wee bit different. I'm desperate to know if Russ or Dave or Ewan or anyone has got a ravine. Because Charlie obviously cuts a bit of a live wire. He's got a live wire.
He's got a live wire,
Harley
aye.
gave him one. Wonder if anybody's got a ravine.
That'd be cool. That'd be really interesting.
I know.
I
When
know.
he add that, I'll add that to the question list before I get in contact.
Aye.
I'm terrified of DM and Charley Boorman. I'm just making that perfectly clear. Like,
He's just a man.
he's just
He's just a man looking at a podcast host.
I thought you were going to say we all poo the same way,
We all
kind of
poo
thing.
the
I
same way,
thought
yeah.
you were going to go down that
but
bit,
you know, it's that whole rom-com, isn't it? He's just a man looking at a podcast host thinking,
thinking,
will
what
I
am I
reply?
doing? What am I doing?
Will I reply to that
Who
message?
is this?
Who's
idiot?
this guy?
I'll thingy for the actual show page rather than just my page. It's some random
perfect.
going, what?
Right. Hey, I think so.
Aye.
Cool.
Oh, this guy's getting me in his
So
bio
fingers
pic.
crossed, very soon we'll be able to let you know we'll be chatting with Charlie.
I know.
Charlie.
I know. We never even said to him. By the way, you know we call you West Coast Charlie Harley. Just saying. Again, we'll slip that in after we've got the interview in the
Aye,
tape.
we'll do that on the interview. Aye.
Right towards
Can't
the
escape.
end. Right towards the end. Anyway, that was chicken.
What's it
I
time?
see.
What's it time for now?
Hello, it's now time for the news.
Oh, there we go. Eh?
That's a
There we
good
go,
reading.
let's get it.
I'm glad that was the right button, or that could have been
That would
horribly
fine.
wrong.
What's it time for now? Yeah. No, it's no time for
Aye.
that.
Or the outro music. What? Really? We
Right.
chucked it. Big news.
Get your big news out for the listeners. Go.
Get my big news out for the listeners.
Aye.
The new Kawasaki Z 900 RS SE, which
We talked. Did we touch on it?
I think
last week?
he touched on
Last
it because we
one.
literally just saw a
A picture of it, yeah.
picture of it.
and it was yellow. So
Which you mean, although we have seen a yellow bobber today, which it was just gorgeous.
amazing. Yep.
But I think this is just as nice because it's very retro looking. So Kawasaki are launching again this kind of retro-looking Z900 RSSE.
Limited edition, isn't it?
It's a limited
SE probably a special edition.
special edition. With improved suspension, upgraded brakes, and the single most important point of this whole thing is the 1970s tribute paint job that just so happens to be yellow and black.
Yes.
It's set to cost around £12,500, £12,499. Call it 12.5. And it's going to be in the showrooms from January 2022. The new SE is based on the standard 948cc 4-cylinder RS Roadster. Let's dispense with all that. Let's talk about the bit that really excites us about it is that paint job.
Aye.
It's inspired, believe it or not, by the 1972 Z1 Super 4 model. It is stunning to look at. I know it's just a lick of paint, but come on. With the gold rims and the gold forks. And
it's a beautiful bit of kit.
Aye. It does get
Physically.
It does get little other little things on it. So it's got little red RS badges below the seat. Again, gold cast wheels. It's got a black cover and radiator sides, so the whole radiator's kind of black to it. But it's an absolute thing about even the rear shock is yellow. Do you know what I mean? Underneath you can see it poking out. Just it's just lovely. It is beautiful. Now the boring bits. I'm saying the boring bits. Updated Owens S46 rear shock with remote preload adjuster. Again, but it's yellow. Hey. Separate chambers for the oil and gas are said to actually improve the ride. It makes it more smoother, which is quite interesting. Fully adjustable gold 41mm upside down forks. Now,
Or gold, or as I like to think about it, shiny yellow.
Shiny yellow. They're not Owens, but hey, who cares? Again, the fact that they're shiny yellow is all that matters. New Brembo brakes on 300mm discs, which the inside of which are shiny gold. I really don't care about all the other wee gizmos on it. It's yellow and black. It's 70s retro yellow and black. It looks absolutely tremendous.
It is a thing
if I had a
about
spare $12,500, yes.
Yeah. And maybe a wee average biker's trip out to the Kawasaki showroom in Edinburgh for a look.
Is there one in Edinburgh?
Aye,
Kirkcaldy.
Yeah, they've started talking about it on social media, booking a test ride and all that. But I don't even really necessarily want to ride it. I just want to go and
I just
look
want
at it in
to
the
see
flesh.
I know.
Yeah.
And then we'll swing by Triumph and see if they've got a Stephen Queen one. Just that bit. That would be the ultimate.
That would be.
But it is nice if you haven't checked it out, go and check it out. It's a thing of beauty. Unless you really don't like yellow, in which case it's not for you. But why do you not like yellow? What's wrong with you? Think of it as shiny and matte gold. That makes it easier for you to digest.
Yes.
But it's yellow. It's yellow. It's so yellow.
Love it.
What's next?
We've got a possible Yamaha R9.
Ooh.
So, new trademark applications have been submitted by Yamaha for the names R9 and YZF R9. So, hinted at the start of the year, could this be for people who don't want that R7 that Colin doesn't like?
Like controversial Colin
doesn't like, or an R1. So with the MT-09 receiving a full refresh in 2021 with a new engine and chassis, could this be the perfect starting point for a new, slightly larger than middleweight sport bike? Could it be? Who knows? Let's take the 09 SP variant. Okay, I will add some decent fairing, drop the handlebars down and move your pegs back. Yep. So
that's an R9.
That's an R9, aye. It's already on a million miles away, so possibly a slight tweak to the engine and Bob's your uncle. Yep. This would absolutely fit right in with the rest of the Yamaha lineup. So your MT125 would be an R125, an MT-03 would be an R3. You see where we're going with this?
Aye.
You know, absolutely. So if you look at the power in the R7, it produces 73.4 brake horsepower, which is not far off the MT7's 72 brake horsepower. The MT-09 produces around 117 brake horsepower and weighs 189 kilos. So would the R9 be up around about the same? Just so happens that the old R6 produced 117 brake horsepower and weighed 190 kilos. Spooky.
That's more than coincidental.
Aye, absolutely.
Which alarmingly means controversial Colin was right weeks and weeks ago.
Aye, I know.
The R7 is wrong.
Aye, exactly. Yep. I think you're absolutely right that was wrong, but right that it was wrong.
Right, that was wrong. Right.
We don't know anything more other than just a lot of what's it going to be looking like. All these kind of ifs, buts, and maybes. No idea on price, but we would imagine it would be somewhere between the R7 and the R1. The MT09 is costing 10,202. So is that maybe a realistic reason we add $1,000 on for
10,999.
10,999, something like that.
Keep it going.
Yep.
It does.
Is it an exciting bit of news? It's just it's
exciting
keep your eyes peeled.
If you're a Yamaha fan
Aye.
and love the R, you mean love that R range,
Yeah.
but you mean don't want the R6. We'd much rather have, but don't want, because the R1's just like mental.
Aye.
It is mental. Funny enough though, the new R1 is, I think, the same. The MT10 was the chassis from the R1. So they kind of, I'm sure it was. I'm sure I read that somewhere. So to do it the other way would kind of make sense.
Yeah, totally.
And it does give that, and it does mean that they've got, they've got a clear path to, you get your R125, and then if you want a R3, R3 for A2s or whatever, or you want an R7 as your first big bike, you mean if you're a 24, and then you want to jump up, but you're terrified, or your insurance company's terrified of you buying an R1, you would then have bought an R6.
Aye.
But the R6 is done, and probably the R9 would have more technology on it. So,
and I think that's probably where I'm kind of thinking they'll try and win you over with it, is getting some really nice tech on board to make that.
Aye, and I think they're the only. I can't think. I was trying to think about this. I think they're the only manufacturer that does it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? They've got the naked 125, the sport bike 125, the naked 300, sport bike 300, and you mean because nobody else seems to do it. KTM don't do it. BMW, I suppose you get the 1000 XR and then the 1000 RR.
Mm-hmm.
But are they really the same bike? No, I think there's definitely nuances between them.
Aye. This is far more obviously the same.
Aye.
Bike. Well, a different.
I think they'll sell though. I genuinely think they'll sell. I think it will be at the detriment though of the R7, because I think folk will go, yeah, could buy an R7, but I'll just buy an R9.
Aye.
Because I wouldn't buy an MT07. I would have bought an MT09 or a Tracer 900.
Yes, exactly. You
Because
just for that extra wee bit of power and that extra wee bit of.
Aye, I could drive. I could learn. If that was my first bike, and we had this conversation, you mean if I was to go back and pick the first bike again, I would have probably picked a Tracer 900. Because it was a nice upright bike. It had everything. I could put luggage on it. It's quite versatile. But it had enough power that once I got bored to the kind of 700cc range, I mean, you can put it into like B mode or A mode or whatever, and you get
just go
and go to nuts. So, yes,
yeah, it's very nice.
Watch this, man. I guarantee it'll be months and months and months and months before.
And with your COVID and all these kind of things, Japan and all that not being, it might not even be 2022. Do you know what I mean?
No,
you could
no,
realistically
you may get a prototype next year.
Aye,
aye, who knows?
And then you're, and you do tend to find when they start kind of doing that whole kind of trademark thing and all that, it's years. It can be years before you get that,
Aye.
And it might be maybe this is actually that they're already planning for the R7's predecessor. What's the word? No predecessor. Successor. That's it.
I had to rattle my brain
Aye,
there. I
right.
shouldn't be
I'm glad you
rattling my brain at
rattled.
this time
No.
and that time, innit? Aye. Well, watch this space.
Right.
I'm going to move it on to something a bit more.
Yes,
It's not. But it's not. It is bike related, but it's not like bike related.
When I first read this wee bit that we're going to talk about, I just saw the headline and went, "That's a cool name for a bike."
What, the Norton Justice?
Aye.
Oh my God, I'd buy one of them. I would buy one of them in a heartbeat.
Wouldn't it?
Aye. I guarantee somebody must have done a bike called a Justice.
Surely.
Like Victory, the Victory Justice. Oh, you know what I mean? Sounds like revenge for something. but it's not. It's not. Don't get excited. It's not on your bike.
Victory Justice. It could be a.
Aye.
It could be a straight to video with Steven Seagal, maybe.
It could be actually.
Mm.
Aye. Matter of fact, it's probably a really bad 80s Steven Seagal movie already.
Yeah.
This is to do with Stuart Gardner, the ex-Norton boss. He has been summoned to appear at Derby Magistrates Court on November the 15th this year. He is to be charged with 3 separate counts of breaching ERI rules. If found guilty, he could face £50,000 fine and 2 years in jail. Now, ERI is the Employer-Related Investment Rules. So they're there to prevent anyone using more of the pension pot than they actually should be doing. So essentially, they're not allowed to take any more than 5% of the current market value of a pension scheme and invest it anywhere else, right? So they can invest 4% and they can't invest 5%. Gardner has been accused of investing way more than 5% of the assets of that pension scheme into Norton Motorcycle Holding Limited. It won't get all these people that had their bikes dismantled and then resold. And then, you know what I mean, it's not going to help those people. Those people are not going to get their dream Norton back. They're not going to recoup that kind of money, but it will see or potentially see this man getting punished for his, what's the word I'm looking for? His share in the whole debacle. I just thought it was a very interesting little snippet in one of the news magazines, and I think it's good. I think these people need to be held to account.
Yeah, absolutely. I think unfortunately it for the hundreds of people that have been affected by the Norton thing, and all that stuff, it's just a shame because it will not seem enough for any of them. Do you know what I mean?
No, and they've probably still got boxes and boxes of their bike and bits of their bike. I mean, they're no, and I get that the new owners of Norton are trying to kind of do something, even if it is just like a hefty discount on a new bike. But at least the man that seems to have been kind of orchestrating it allegedly
is getting some sort of justice served. Yeah,
said now stifle.
Good.
The transit van.
But it would also be a really cool name for a bike.
It would be an awesome name for a bike, the Norton Justice. I don't even think Norton, but it's just the Justice. I mean, it could be would it work for Yamaha? The Yamaha Justice?
Triumph Justice is what?
The Triumph Justice. Triumph, if you're listening, that is an awesome name for a bike.
Absolutely.
And it needs to come default yellow and black.
Absolutely. 100% yellow and black.
Or shiny gold and black. Yeah. We'll know that first.
No, we're okay. We're comfortable as long as it's got a wasp-like
attitude and serves justice.
Exactly.
Like the green Hornet, but in yellow. The yellow Hornet. Sounds like a really bad rip-off. Talking of Triumph,
yes. Guess what? There's a new Triumph coming out. It's not a podcast if I don't talk about new Triumph. This is a kind of jumped out of nowhere. This is like this kind of adventure bike has popped out the woods and you didn't know it was in there. It's the Triumph Tiger Sport 660. So they've unveiled a new addition to its midweight arsenal, a brand new sports tourer called the Tiger Sport 660, which is based off the fairly recently added Trident 660. Triumph haven't released any details on the new Tiger Sport, but looking at the pictures, well, when they say they haven't released any details, but they have released a picture, which has got that funky Triumph wallpaper on it, right?
Which is wallpaper I would like in here for a feature wall.
That'd be cool. That'd be very cool.
If Triumph are listening, we want some of that wallpaper.
Yes, please. But as I was back in the cave, if we took that wallpaper but changed it to loads of different bike logos, that'd be okay cool.
It would be.
Anyway, so have a wee look online. You do it when we talk about the wallpaper. Triumph haven't released any details on the new Tiger Sport, but looking at the pictures, the engine looks the same. But we don't know if they've worked some magic on the inside, tweaking its performance, maybe altering the gear ratios and, tweaks of power distribution, all that kind of stuff, yeah.
Right.
The subframe looks similar, but possibly strengthened or lengthened to manage panniers and passengers if it's a real sports tourer. It's got wallpaper panniers on it, so I would assume it's going to have some sort of kind of tweak to it, yeah. So, there is additional fairing and a decent sized screen to make it more aerodynamic and comfortable in motorways to ease that wind blast. It does look to have a slightly longer fork setup, which would make sense adventure-wise. It's interesting to see if they alter the rear. Imagine they would,
Aye.
You
can't
come back to long way up. That's kind of what they did with the live wire middle, wasn't it?
Aye.
And they
you can't really adjust the front without doing something to the rear.
No, exactly.
Especially if we're talking about they've got luggage on it with wallpaper. But aye.
There we go. It does have a nice looks like it's going to have a nice classy finishing. The disguised bike does look to have kind of right angle valves, bobbin threads and blanking covers. This means they may stick with the Michelin Road 5 tyres. If it keeps the Trident electronics pack, then expect riding modes, traction control, ABS, smartphone connectivity, all the usual plethora of goodies. Plethora. Now, pricing is yet to be released, given its arrival for the Yamaha Tracer 7 and Triumph of a Tiger 850 Sport. They will need to be very clever with their price strategy. It won't be too long before Triumph unveil it properly, along with a spec sheet. And watch this space. And I was going to say, I saw a video about this the other day. The new Tiger 1200 is inbound also, and it was literally the Tiger 1200 bouncing out for the trees and jumping over a big thing with its wallpaper on.
With the wallpaper
on. So there's a new. Guess what? I'll probably talk about that next time.
If there's more info on it next time.
More info, I think maybe we could.
Yeah, that we just don't need another podcast until Triumph release something that you can talk about. It's 6 and 2 3s.
Yeah, absolutely. But to be honest, you know how much I like Triumph. They could release a new T-shirt and be like, have you seen the new Triumph T-shirts out?
It's a T-shirt of that wallpaper.
To be fair, that would maybe
a bit busy, wouldn't it?
A bit
Maybe
busy.
like a test card for the BBC.
Yeah. Maybe a black T-shirt, but with just that wallpaper in one sleeve. I've got a bit of space 1999 there, right?
Just on one sleeve? Just
doing one sleeve of that wallpaper and a black T-shirt. If you're listening to Triumph, I've got a bit of space 1999.
That's like that would work. As long as they've got it at the funky angles that they've got the wallpaper.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't have a funky angle, it's not worth it. So
it looks nice.
It does look nice.
Even with the wallpaper on it. Do you know what I mean? I can see it in all black to it. You know what I mean? Or black and yellow. But I can see it all black to it. It's definitely it'll be interesting to see how it handles with that 660 in it.
The other day I was just reading we've got I follow, obviously we're on a lot of Facebook groups and things like that, and there was one of the Triumph Street Twin, I think it was Speed Twin user groups that I follow, and it was one of these guys had been given a Trident as his bike. His bike was getting into service and all that, and been given a Trident as his bike, and says he hated it.
Oh really?
He was and very particular about why he hated it. He said that it doesn't go much faster than his Speed Twin. Right, a Street Twin. Right. Don't go much faster than the Street Twin. He said you can't really, when you're riding along, you want to be, if you're sitting in 50, you want to just pop the throttle and you get a wee boost of speed to overtake.
Yep.
He said you've got to be doing over 6,000 revs before that even thinks about doing it.
Aye.
He said it's almost like it's like sending a message from the electronic system to the engine by carrier pigeon to tell you that it's going to overtake.
Right, okay.
He was really disappointed with it, and it's a shame because I really liked that. I really liked that Trident, and thought I wouldn't mind trying to get a wee shot. I want to see if that's true or not, but it seems to be that it only really has a lot of torque and a lot of oomph at the higher end of the revs. Which so you've got to bump it down a couple of gears before you overtake, rather than trying to just get that wee pop.
That's where I think for this, if they're going to go for that whole sports tourer thing, I think they would need to alter that gear ratio, because you would need to have something a bit more. But
you want something when you're on. You don't want to be bumping up and down 2 or 3 gears to.
No.
I don't mind. I mean, I'm when I'm in mine, the Street Cup, I will bump down a gear or 2 if I'm going to overtake, because I just to make sure I've got that.
Aye.
Push, you know what I mean? Apart from when I was coming over here and I just went in 5th and just popped it out and took over a BMW Z4. It was quite nice. Nice, satisfying feeling. Which was, interestingly enough, yellow with a black stripe.
Was it?
Well, shiny yellow.
Shiny yellow, alright. BMW shiny yellow.
BMW shiny yellow, yeah. Which is slightly bio-coloured, but you know what I mean.
Aye.
Anyway.
Aye. Baby nappy yellow.
Baby nappy yellow. Yeah, there we go.
Or baby nappy brown.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what the seat height is, whether it's suitable for short bums like me, but I'm sure they'll do a low version, as they tend to do in the Tigers anyway.
Aye, it's definitely an interesting one, because it is, again, it's sitting right in in a weird place. Like, I mean,
Could it be the R7 of adventure bikes?
no, because it's more of a sports tourer, isn't it?
Aye.
So, but then I suppose, is there anything really in that?
It's like if I was going to
category sports tourer,
if I was going to buy a
Chaser.
Tiger, I'd probably go for the
900.
the 900 rally low. Yeah.
Yep.
So that I didn't drop it, and you know, rather than jump down to a 660, you know.
I just.
But
I
probably
still,
a very
got, I
good-
still got to see where it sits in
if-
the market. That's
if-
my only
aye.
problem.
it's maybe good if it is a first adventure bike,
Aye.
possibly, and that's where they've got to be really clever with their prices. They've got to make it desirable
Aye,
enough.
because you think about it, that's the 660. There's a Tiger
850,
850,
Tiger 900,
Tiger 900, and then
1200.
they're thinking the new 1200.
1200. Aye, so
Aye, they need to be.
it's,
I mean, I have faith in Triumph.
yeah,
That's-
absolutely, and I think, and you know, I'm sure they've done all the kind of things to say that this will sell. So you know,
Aye. Well,
there's a lot more people using bikes now, and probably now is the time to give a slightly more forgiving adventure bike for people. You know,
aye. Something a bit,
mm-hmm.
I might say lighter, but something that's no going to scare people.
Aye.
That people are quite happy, and it might be it's one of those ones that never sees an adventure or a big tour, but people maybe do like a weekend on it, or
Aye, and it's got the size and the shape to be able to do that.
aye, and yet you could still take the panels off it or leave it on it and still commute on it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it might be one of those ones.
I
Who
do
knows?
like it though. I do like it.
Aye. Watch
Mhm.
the sports. And that's it.
That's
the
it.
news.
Yeah, that's the news.
That was
This
dead.
is the news.
That is the news. And we still keep doing this is the news. Next up,
The
big question.
have you re-recorded that? Because that pause seemed to last far longer than I remember.
No.
The big question.
No.
No.
It's
Okay.
still the same one. I've
fair enough.
got enough to be getting on with. I'm trying to write questions for Charley Boorman,
Exactly.
which is stressing me out. So this week we haven't really given it. We haven't really.
It's not really a big question, is it? It's more of a
We haven't.
it's more of a medium information session. To be honest,
It's a
information session.
It's a public broadcast announcement. It was more kind of what is your last big road this season kind of thing, which it's I'm not going to say it's our finest piece. However, it really got me excited looking at some of these roads.
There's a few crackers there actually
I know
that you kind of forget are there, which I thought was really good.
Absolutely,
You know,
you know what I mean? With us now into September, a lot of bikers, especially here in the UK, will be looking at the forecast every single day or weekend going, oh, will I go out? Will I not go out? And some people will already be in the plan mode of, well, I know I've got 4 weekends and then my bike gets washed and cleaned and ACF 50'd and then I'll cover it up and put it in the garage. Or they'll be moving to their old bike that they're quite happily willing to Ian.
yeah, exactly.
We're going to Ian it.
I'm going to eat
Aye.
it. Yeah.
Because that way,
That's the new phrase. Ian
if
it.
they Ian it, you mean
You can get that in a t-shirt. Have you Ian'd your bike?
have you Ianed your bike? I'm going to make that
That's
happen.
about.
I'm going to make that happen. So yeah, with those weeks left, we thought we'd have a little look and see. Right, let's have a look and see what roads in the UK are some of those roads that are potentially must-dos before or if you're looking for any kind of inspiration, if you haven't done or been out
Yeah.
already, let's have a look and see. Yeah, I mean what's out there. Now we've only picked a few because there are tons and there's loads and loads and loads of different experts and articles and books and websites and all sorts. So we've just picked a few, some of which we'll know because of where we live. Others we might not know as much about, but we have done a fair bit of reading and a bit of looking into them.
Yes.
And we've selected A few.
A few to tell you about, yes.
So,
Yeah, apologies for listeners that are not in the UK, because it's all UK based.
yes, sorry.
Sorry.
And that's probably a shout out. If there's anyone that's not in the UK based that has the most amazing road where you live and wants to tell us about it, send us the route.
Yeah.
Because we'll quite happily look at it. You know what I mean? We'll share it with everyone else. We'll probably talk about it on the show at some point.
Yeah.
If we can even do a listener's road section or something, even just a one-off. You know what I mean? If someone sends something in, we will more than happily talk about it, because, again, we're desperate to know
We could
where some
start
of
it
these
with
good
talking
roads are.
heads. We're on a road to nowhere. Get out and ride.
Aye, we're going to be on the phone shortly going, oh, that's just cost you £65.
I think you can get away with it if it's less than 30 seconds.
Oh, is it? Happy days.
Okay.
We will abuse that.
Absolutely. Cool.
What's
Right,
up
so where
first?
are we? Up first, we have got the biggie, the one that everybody talks about in Scotland because they have made it such a big...
Well, in the UK, yeah.
In the UK, yeah. So it's basically it's the NC 500. The North Coast 500. So if you have 3 or 4 days, it's a great road. Enjoy it. Take your time. Stunning. Right?
Aye, and there's folk dating too, but I think if you're going to enjoy it,
If you're going to enjoy it.
3 or 4 days.
Yeah, absolutely. Starting at Inverness and going west or clockwise, which is passing by Elandon and Castle. You're heading out towards Skye there. On the A87, everyone knows that castle. It's the castle from Highlander. It's the castle that every single Scottish tourist board has in their posters.
Bond in a Sean Connery in a DB5 on the bridge.
On the bridge, yep, all that stuff,
Everyone
right?
knows
It is the one. It's the one. It's a wee bridge across to its own wee island, right? You'll know it. Yeah, you'll have seen it everywhere. Then you head out over to Applecross and on the world famous Applecross Road, which I've driven in the car, but I've never been on the bike. But that's scary to do it in a car. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
It's lovely if the weather is right, which it was the day I did it, but it's horrific if it isn't. It's like just super narrow. It's a single track lane. You've got trucks and things that come towards you, motorhomes, caravans and
you name
everything. It's just, but
Mammals.
hairpin bends, massive gradient, just to get you up to the top, but worth every single second of doing it. Brilliant. But you can't cut it out. You can scoot by it. There's another way around to get you there. So either way passes at Shieldig. From there, head towards Kinlochhew and into Gairloch. And we're doing it with proper Scottish. So our English listeners will go, it's Gairloch. No, it's Gairloch. And then from Gairloch, it's north to Ullapool. If you wanted to, you could jump on a ferry at Ullapool to Mull.
Aye.
If you wanted to do a wee bit of ferry hopping there, add a few more extra days on your trip. But that's not part of the NC 500, that's just an aside. Ullapool is a nice spot to stop for the day. It's a lovely wee town. Again, it depends how many days you plan to take to complete the route. But from Ullapool, it's up north. You pass Ledmore Junction and Inchnadam.
It's spelled DAM.
PH, but it's
The
Inchnadam.
PH is
The PH
silent.
is silent, yeah. The PH
Hey,
is
why
silent.
would we do that? Only us as a nation. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go on my soapbox, but
They
only
don't.
us as a nation.
And you can't really go on your soapbox because you just go Welsh.
Oh, aye.
You know,
aye,
so
aye.
actually, at least there's actually vowels and consonants in that word. Do you know what I mean?
Aye. I'll talk about the next trip, which is Wales,
Wales, aye.
and you'll see what I mean.
And then at this point, you can head west towards Lochinver, which is a great wee place, right? In a big circle, or you can continue north. Either route brings you out to Kilskew, yeah. The last push north, and you will follow the coastline to Durness. Now it's all east, so you're literally going along the top of Scotland.
Yep.
The wee flat bit along the top. So if Scotland was Johnny Bravo, you're on his flat top at this point in time. All right.
That's a weird analogy.
I know, that's no good. See?
Everybody's now googling who Johnny
Bravo is. Apart from people of a certain age who
who have kids of a certain age.
Who were addicted to and who had NTL, that was the first place, the NTL cable that gave you Cartoon Network. Right. Okay. So a number of ways to go east, but they all head towards Thurso and John O'Groats, of course. After a quick coffee and some amazing beaches and stuff up there.
Aye.
Quick coffee and a selfie at the tip of the mainland. It's downhill, well, south at least. And you go to Wick. Wick's one of the places you can get your there's a wee airport in Wick, isn't there? You can fly to Shetland, fly to Orkney,
You can
Papa Westray. Thursday you can go to Orkney on the ferry,
on the ferry.
which I've done. Orkney is a stunning place to go.
The Old Man of Hoy.
The Old Man of Hoy, see all that stuff. Jiggery pokery. Then you go through a few towns, Dunbeath, Helmsdale, and Brora.
Brora. My
Which is
favourite.
your favourite, isn't it?
My favourite, Brora. We've got friends that live in Brora, and it's one of those ones. Just seems to be that whole kind of Johnny Bravo's kind of
Flat top.
and slight side shed.
Yep.
It's just full of beautiful beaches and stuff.
Before you hit his beautiful cheekbones.
Exactly.
And then you get then you can stop at the retired thieves' castle.
Dunrobin Castle, which has got the world's largest rhubarb. I mean, it's huge.
There you go. If that's not worth going,
it's worth it. Just don't get me wrong, it's Disney-esque. It's very beautiful.
It's beautiful. It does look like it should be in a German thing or something.
And there's there's a bird, one of these birds of prey guys that works out there, and you can see the birds of prey and stuff. So it's quite cool.
But you're saying it's got big rhubarb, right?
But it's got the world's biggest rhubarb.
Big rhubarb, right? Rhubarb and custard.
It's massive.
So. And interesting enough, that fascinates me, and I'll tell you why, because when I was in New Zealand, back in 2011, 2012, 2013, trips to New Zealand, there's loads of wee places in New Zealand which are just like the wee towns where, blink and you miss them as you drive through them.
Yep. So
they've all done things to try and make you stop and have a coffee and things like that, and it was all things like big vegetables and massive
world's
things.
Biggest ball of yarn.
So exactly that kind of thing. So I've got pictures beside the world's biggest welly boot, the world's biggest carrot, all these things.
You need to go to Dunrobin Castle.
I know, so I've got to go down and get my picture next to the world's biggest rhubarb.
I mean, the leaves, like rhubarb.
Aye.
Things like the leaves are like the size of a car. They're huge.
Well, I think Dunrobin Castle for a wee rhubarb tart sounds like a trip.
Yes.
You carry on past Golspie, and then you can take a detour up to Lairg, and then round and down to Bonner Bridge, or you can follow the A9 down to Tane. The A9, of course, being part of the Black Isle, and the Old Men of Tane is where Glenmorangie whiskey is. So pop in there for a wee.
That whole
sniftery-wiftery.
Probably for Wick, all the way down, and you're in. You mean there's distilleries all the way down there, and then you're at Speyside. So.
Either route brings you right back into Inverness, which is a great city. I know it's a great city. I love it.
It's lovely.
I love it. There are so many variations along the North Coast 500 route that you can literally weave on and off the main route. And I don't think people that have done it have done the same route twice. It has to be a must for any UK biker.
And I think it's one of those ones. Even like Motorcycle News do a North Coast 746 or something, and they detour off onto Skye and do a couple of islands, and then come back on and rejoin, and then go all the way around again. So it adds a couple of miles on it. So. But
it's it is some of the most stunning scenery and beaches, clear waters, and everything.
It could be a tropical island. Some of them just white sands and blue water. And don't get me wrong, I dare say the water's freezing, and it's absolutely Baltic.
But still looks stunning, yeah, absolutely. So if you're driving around, if you've got a wee Mavic Mini drone, take it with you, you'll get some amazing shots.
Good thinking.
No, Darren, we're going down south and off to the left.
We're going to Wales. The Landovery Loop, South Wales. So passing through the Brecon Beacons and the Black Mountain, this is a 55-mile loop, and it's an absolute stunner. Starting, obviously, in Landovery, head south along the A4069 to Langdog, where you will hang a left. Still on that A4069, you continue through the Black Mountains to Brinnaman.
Brinnaman, that's a great name, isn't it?
Brinnaman. Now,
can you go for a cinnamon in Brinnaman?
Cinnamon.
Cinnamon in Brinnaman.
There probably is.
It kind of makes me think of the. I've now got in my head though the Muppet song. Anyway,
now this road that you've just been riding will be very familiar for people in the UK. Actually, probably people in other countries as well. This will seem very familiar because this is the road that they close off for the Top Gear. So the guys when they're riding through the thing, this is the Top Gear road. So
is that the one that they close off and then break the rules of the road, and then they get loads of complaints in from Anorak people saying
that's the one.
that man should not wait until he'd finished passing the white double lines before taking control of the
That's
car.
the one.
Right.
That's the road. Obviously, when you're riding it, the road will be open. So don't do that.
So don't do that.
But yeah, from Brinnaman, you head towards. Now, this is where this. I thought we were doing well with the Scottish names.
Yeah.
But Istradginlis.
Istradginlis.
Which is.
Linginlis. Istradginlis.
Aye. It's quite a
I should
mouthful.
really not attempt a Welsh accent.
And it's spelt with a Y. It's pronounced that way, but it's spelt with a Y. But interestingly, when we were chatting about, we were chatting to Charlie. Oh my God, we're going to turn into those two. We were chatting obviously with Charlie.
Have you met our friend Charlie?
Have you met our friend Charlie?
Yeah.
Sorry lads, I can't come out and run tonight.
We're talking to Charlie.
We were talking to Charlie, and this is where the BMW off-road school is, that's run by Simon Pavey, who was the guy that obviously taught Ewan and Charlie to do a bit of off-road for Long Way Down.
That's right.
Long Way Round.
The first one, yeah.
And then Long Way. But he also was one of the co-riders with Charlie and taught Charlie on Race to Dakar. So that's obviously where his place is. He actually went on to finish the Dakar. He's finished the Dakar a number of times. So he's a properly good rider. But then if you head onward to Glentoy, up to Senny.
That was very good.
Glentoy. Head up to Senny Bridge and turn right. From here, you're straight back west until you return to your starting point. Again, it's a beautiful loop, and it's got loads of things in it. There's a slight detour here, which I put in purely for our benefit. But if you get a chance, there's a vantage point, which is the Hindra Falls. So it's South Wales' highest waterfall at a whopping 90 feet. Now, a lot of you are thinking, oh, that's amazing. You want us to stop and have a look at some waterfalls? Oh, yeah. No, thank you. However, these waterfalls are not just any waterfalls.
Oh, no.
These are the entrance to the Bat Cave. So if you remember the Dark Knight Rises, the whole waterfall that he goes into and that thingy Bob kind of swings through and all that.
Right, yeah.
That's the bit they filmed it. So they were there for I think 3 or 4 days filming
and
those waterfalls.
And I thought that waterfall was outside Wayne Manor as well.
Nope. It's in South Wales.
It's not so much Wayne Manor as Wayne Minor.
Wayne Minor. It's a good wee route that. It's in. I can't remember the book. I will remember what the book is. I think it's the UK's thingy books. I can come to it later on. But if you can check that out, and if you're doing that way, obviously for the likes of us, it's an epic trip to get there. We would need to have a day to get there.
Yeah.
And then a day to go around it.
Aye.
A couple of times.
Although
we'd probably spend ages
at the
waterfall. Like,
with my Batman helmet.
Or going back
with my Batman helmet.
Back across the Top Gear road about 4 or 5 times. And then to the waterfall for about 4 hours. But yeah, the Landovery loop in South Wales is a stunner. Even go and check some of the pictures out. There's some great pictures up there for it.
We're going to scoop up a bit north again to the Lakeland loop. Now, of course, if it's a lake...
And this is good. This is no
doing
weird place names in it.
No.
We should be fine
This
here.
is great. But it's got a funny named place, which is great. Love it. So, and my schoolboy humour will take an absolute, adrenaline boost here for this one. Anyway, Lakeland Loop, Cumbria, which is northwest England, and we're talking about the Lake Districts essentially. Really, is what we're looking at here. Some of the most, second to Scotland, some of the nicest scenery out there.
I've just noticed on the map with the route on it exactly what you're going to giggle at.
Exactly. So, we're heading south. You can start at Penrith, nice wee place. You head south to Windermere. You then have 2 options. Option 1 is to go northwest towards Ambleside, or option 2 is to go south to Bowness and Windermere, which is a beautiful wee place, and then west to Coniston. Coniston is famous, of course, for Coniston water. So if you're a petrol head and you're a speed freak and everything, Coniston Water is where Campbell, I had the Bluebird, so he broke the speed record on water, and then had his fatal crash, Coniston Water. So that's where all that happened. So, when Campbell did all that and he designed all that, that's so that it's like, and I think there's a I don't know if it's Keswick or somewhere that there's a museum, and they're trying to get the Bluebird back, and they've restored it, and they're trying to put it in this museum and all that. So if you're a speed freak of any kind, then that's steeped in history there for petrol heads of all kind. Coniston is great, and I love that neck of the woods. It's beautiful down there. Either route will return you to the A593, and from there you're heading or following the signage for Hard Not Pass, and that's not the one that's funny.
No.
Right? Hard Not Pass, although to be fair, if you take some Senna, you'll probably get past it okay. At only 2 miles long, it doesn't read as one of those bucket list roads. However, it's only 2 miles, but you've got to ascend 1,291 feet at a constant grade of 1 in 3 or 30%. It's a fair old climb.
And there's a kind of debate about, believe it or not, I think there's 3 roads that claim to be the steepest.
Aye. And that's one of them.
That's one of them, and there's one in New Zealand, and I can't remember
right.
what it was.
And they always kind of fight each other over
Aye.
it, and there's some sort of topographical nuance that they've got that they say that's why they're the steepest, or you know.
Either way, it's a fair old.
It's a fair old hike up there. Some publications say this is more suited to the adventure bike owner and is not for the novice or solo rider. I say if you know your bike, and you know your talent, you know what I mean, research it and make it your own call. Recently, Henry Cole rode all the way up on a Harley Davidson Livewire. So clearly didn't drain the battery too much.
No. He'd put it on his list to go up because I don't think he'd been up it before.
The views at the top are amazing, and on a good day you can see across the Irish Sea to the Isle of Man, which of course is motorbike mecca.
Right.
Yep. Now if you get there and you thought I can do it but change your mind, you can detour south and round the coast towards Bootle and back to Calder Bridge, where you would pick up the route. So there's a way around if you want to. Heading north and inland, we follow the A595 and the A5086 to...
Wait for it.
Cockermouth. Yes! There we go. There we go. So from Cockermouth, you turn east and you go back towards Penrith. So and Penrith is obviously east from Cockermouth. So there we go. In total, you covered about 140 miles, including passing through Cockermouth. And if you take the pass, you're about 180. 140 miles if you take the pass, 180 if you detour.
Aye.
Yep. So if you take the wee steepy bit past Cockermouth, then you can 140, 180 if you detour. There we go.
For listeners, when he said that, he had a quick look over his shoulder just to see if his headmaster was sitting.
Exactly.
Well, keep quiet, boy.
So anyway, so there you go, from Coniston to Cockermouth.
And you could probably start that route from, I think Penrith's the easy point to start it from, because you could literally just come off of the main, because Penrith is literally on the main, it's on the M6, and it's on parallel with some of the other big roads. But you could also start it at Windermere and kind of go that way.
Yeah, you could start at Windermere, start at Penrith.
You could even start it at
Cockermouth if you wanted to, if you're coming down from the coast. We didn't mention it, but you do pass through or by Keswick.
Aye, which is
a gorgeous market town, right? Beautiful, right? But there's a baker's in Keswick that do this plum bread, right, which is just incredible. So if you are doing that route, pop in at the baker's and get yourself a wee bit of toasted plum bread covered in butter.
And by the time you've stopped giggling at the fact that you just drove through Cockermouth,
you've built up an appetite
you'd almost be at Keswick
anyway. And you've built up an appetite for the plum bread, and that means that you can leave Cockermouth and get your plums.
Moving on, the A82 in Scotland. So this one it's a bit dear to us.
It is,
because it's literally a stone's throw away from where we're based.
We can smell it from where we're sitting.
Aye. And it is utterly majestic. But again, we are slightly biased by saying it's that. But again, setting off from, I'm going to say Balloch at Loch Lomond. You're at the tip of Loch Lomond and you start to head northwards to Tarbet. Turning right at Tarbert keeps you on the A82, where you continue to follow the lock shoreline. So it's on your right hand side all the way up.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
And there's so many vantage points there. The amount of pictures I've seen of motorbikes at these passing places, and you can just tell it's Loch Lomond all the way along it.
There's also so many caravans
There
on
is,
that road.
but that gives you
That gives you a chance to enjoy the bike.
yes, that gives you a chance to test your technique and your abilities. You eventually run out of Loch Lomond Road and scenery, and the road changes. It still remains twisty and sometimes quite sweeping. Not many towns on this part of the route until you reach Crane Larach, which is such another good name for a town, isn't it? But from here you'll pass through a couple of towns before you reach Tyndrum, which is the home of the Green Welly Stop, which again, it's
from a Scottish biker's perspective, it is the meet-up place, isn't it?
It's everybody's stop. Everybody's got to have a picture of their bike outside the Green Welly Stop.
If you're driving those roads, I have never ever been there and not seen loads of bikers sitting there.
No,
never.
There's always bikers sitting
bikers
there. Again, and you can actually get a decent cup of coffee and a decent. I know what this
breakfasts are good. The breakfasts are good.
They lovely scone, cream and jam.
Oh, aye,
which
nice.
you know what I mean. Again, it's not renowned for the hairy biker. You know what I mean. But as you depart from here at Tyndrum, the road splits in two. So if you go off to the left, that takes you onto the 85, which takes you round towards Oban, which again is another stunning road. And you go into Oban, and Oban's absolutely beautiful. But for the sake of this, we're going to go the other way. We're going to keep off onto the A82. It's passing through the Bridge of Oki and Loch Tulla, where there's another great viewpoint. Slightly further on, you will eventually see Glencoe in the distance, and you'll weave your way along a nice flat winding road, and it is really flat but twisty. You can see for miles.
It's great, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. But this will bring you into the mouth, the Glencoe mountain range. Again, for a deviation, when you pass the Glencoe Mountain Resort, if you take the first left at King's House, there's a 12-mile stretch of road that runs parallel with the river. Is it Etive? But this again,
Etive, it's Glen, because it's Glen Etive. So
it's Glen Etive. Aye,
Glen Etive, yeah.
So the river Etive, and it again runs by the Glen of the same name. But in here you can actually stop and recreate your James Bond Skyfall picture, the one where Daniel Craig and Judi Dench are filmed with the DB5 and she's wearing the tartan blanket, which sounds weird, you know what I mean? But
it's the same place that that iconic Sean Connery one's taken as well. You know, when he's leaning against his DB5, the black and white, the old black and white one.
Aye.
And the reason they used that in Skyfall was because it was exactly the same place.
Tip to him.
Yeah.
So that's again another one for a wee detour if you're a James Bond or a movie fan.
Yeah.
Back onto the 82 after Glencoe, you will head onto the banks of Loch Leven, and you'll cross over at North Ballachulish, heading for Fort William. As you approach Fort William, you get some awesome views of Ben Nevis, if the weather's right, on your right hand side. Fort William's a great place to stop because it's a decent sized.
It's got all the shops you want.
It's got everything. It's got everything you could ever need.
It's not a nice place though. It's a resort town. It's all. You know, it's got some nice wee bits to it, but actually it's maybe
one of those ones. If you had a wee walk down a wee high street and a decent coffee.
Last time I was there, though, I was just so tired, and so half the things were shut and everything. It was anyway. But Fort William is a good place to get things, you know, and if you're camping or whatever you're doing, it's got all your outdoor shops, all your food and everything. It's great for all that, but it's not picture skew.
No, definitely not.
But literally within 2 minutes of leaving there, you're getting some of the best views in the world.
Which is ironic. They just stuck this thing in the middle. And normally you would probably say a lot of people will stop there and say, right, that's me, I've kind of done the 82. However, I wouldn't. I would keep going. And I would keep going because just a little bit along the road is a place called Speen Bridge. And it's not that far along the road. And again, you come off the A82 just ever so slightly, but there is where the World War II Commando Memorial is. and it's a memorial to the officers and the men of the Commandos who died in World War II. That where the statue is, that actually overlooks where those guys trained, and it's an absolutely massive, expansive bit of ground. And for anyone that knows anything about the Commandos, from there they then had to march back to where their barracks were, which is just frightening, because I know.
It's incredible.
Aye, my grandfather's got a plaque there because he was he was a number 1 commando, and he was stationed obviously at Irvine, which again is a fair old trek.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? It takes you about 2.5 hours to get there on the bike.
Aye.
From Glasgow, and then you pull about another half hour to get to Irvine. So there's at least 2.5 hours on the bike to do that trip. Those guys had to walk it back. They were hard as nails. If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, if you've watched, again, we're going to bring it full circle back to Ewan and Charlie, but they stopped there when they did the long way down, when they were coming for John O'Groats. They stopped in at Speenbridge to look at to go at the memorial. It's really well worth a visit. It's quite and the views are spectacular. But the actual memorial itself is really worth a check out. But all in all, just from Balloch to Speenbridge, it's 95 miles. But you think about it, it's not that far, but it's some of the best roads.
It's stunning, isn't it? Yeah.
You've got everything. You've got the loch, you've got the open expansive fields full of heather, you've got the Glencoe Mountain Pass, it's got everything in it. It's just such a good road.
Yeah. But then we're biased.
But then we are slightly biased.
West Coast is the best coast. So last on our list is a route actually it's quite that I love, and I've been on bits of it. I don't think I've done it as a full, from A to B kind of point of view, but I've been on bits of it quite often because my brother lives in Northern Ireland. So this is Northern Ireland in the Antrim coast, which is home to the Northwest 200 every May, which of course is the racing calendar that's up there. And it's home to it when we're not in a pandemic, obviously.
Well, obviously. That was a given.
This route is set along the east coast of Ireland. Most people opt for the 60 miles route from Larne to Portrush. Quite a lot of people get off at Larne, that's where the ferry comes in. And this route not only has a decent set of twisties, but it's also got an amazing road surface because they do use it for racing, so the road surface is well maintained. It's really, really good to ride on, and it does pass through the official Northwest 200 circuit. That's one of the reasons for it. Loads of stopping points for photos, coffee, grub. It's packed with everything you could possibly want. And on a clear day, you'll get really good views of the Mull of Kintyre. Mull of Kintyre. You knew I was going to sing it, didn't you?
I did, die.
You knew that? You're if you started at Portrush, which is it's like a kind of seaside town on the corner.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And went south, you can easily continue down through Belfast and on right down to Kilkeel if the notion takes you. A couple of cool things about that is that up that neck of the woods is where you've got that rope bridge, that famous rope bridge. You've got the Giant's Causeway up there,
which I've never been to. I've been to Northern Ireland and stuff.
Giant's Causeway is amazing. The only thing I'll say is it's not as big as you think it's going to be.
Oh, is it?
But I think but when you realise what it's connecting to in Scotland, Fingal's Cave and all that, and you see beyond just the hexagonal.
Because Fingal was a big giant.
He was a big giant.
The Giant's Causeway.
Exactly. So and then chase somebody chase the Snakes of Ireland or something like that as well.
Yeah. By the way, just to set the record straight, it's actually a volcano that caused it. But
we can't. No.
Sorry.
Oh, was it?
Aye.
Next thing you would tell me there's no Santa Claus. So
no,
that's all right then. That's fine. So you've got loads of places you can stop for history and everything as well. And being a geek that I am, hence that you're not that far away from the King's Road from Game of Thrones.
Oh, really?
Which is up there, and it's that stunning, heavily dense, twisty, weird, almost Tim Burton-esque trees kind of route thing that they use for the King's Road. Although I believe first time I went down it, nobody really knew about it. And it was stunning. I took some great pictures and stuff on the phone and everything.
Whereas now it's going to be mobbed.
The second time I went down it, there was a big thing up saying this is the King's Road from Game of Thrones, but you can still go up and down it, right? And you got your pictures thing. And then the last time I went down it, it's closed off. You can't go down it now, so you can go and visit it.
Because it's the King's
Road to Game of Thrones. But I think, I think all the locals have complained about it because folk just go there and but the last time I went that you were allowed on it, you couldn't get a good picture on the King's Road because everybody was sitting on it in their cars. It's a bit like that kind of, you know what I mean?
Hence why they shot it.
Hence why they shot it. It's fair enough. So now you just can't get a good picture because it's full of people.
Aye.
You know.
And all going well, this weekend, which is I don't even know what date it is today. This is the 8th.
8th, yeah.
So by the time this goes out, it's probably going to be the 10th.
Yep.
So Friday. If anyone's over there, because obviously there's a bike meet, there's a bike race on at Crookstown.
Yep.
This weekend, keep your eyes out for a Gandalf-looking fella driving a Honda CBR.
That is the world famous.
That's controversial. Colin.
Go up and tell him that you love the R7 and everything about it. Just to noise him up, will you?
Colin's over this weekend. He's over for the qualifying and then the racing, and then the Sunday I think he's actually going to go and do that road from Larner up to Portrush.
Nice.
So if you see him about, he'll be handing out average biker stickers and cards and all sorts of stuff. Yep. So if you see him, if
you see him and you get a card, then send us a picture holding up your average biker card, or shows the weirdest place you put your sticker. But keep it clean, it's a family show. And there we go.
Well, send them in anyway. We just can't share them.
Can't share them. So they're just 5 of the top ones we've picked out. There are loads of great roads throughout the country. So a few others for you to look up. Please, the South Coast 500 in England, because if we've got a North Coast, they've got to have a South Coast. Because we're up north and they're down south, it makes sense. They'd have the coast they would have is south.
Logical.
Yep.
What bit of Johnny Bravo's that then?
That's Johnny Bravo's turn-ups.
Yep.
On his denims. Because his shoes are down at the Lizard, down it.
Good point.
Exactly. The Snake Pass Loop in the Peak District in England. Whenever I see Peak District, I just think of daytime dramas. There's always something in the Peak District and daytime dramas in telly.
Something to get mugged up.
The Chalbury TT in Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire in England, and Whiskey Galore in Moray in Scotland. Whiskey Galore.
Whiskey Galore.
Aye.
What does that remind me of? Would you call it? What was that movie? Local Hero?
Well, yeah, although there was a movie called Whiskey Galore.
There was a movie called, just the way you said that.
Whiskey Galore. About
I just thought of the guy painting the bike, painting the boat.
Oh, that's there's a
is he sure there's
$2 L's and $1? Aye, another 2 G's and
bugger off.
Exactly. I love it. Yeah, Whiskey Galore, Money's gone, and of course, based on the Whiskey Galore was the SS Politician, which ran aground full of whiskey. And all the locals stole all the whiskey, and the taxman were chasing after them because the exciseman. Yeah, it's a very good, very funny film, and it also makes a really good play. And there's a play that you can do, which is a play watching them making Whiskey Galore as a radio play, which is very funny.
Oh, really?
Very good, yeah.
Oh, that'd be quite interesting.
Quite good.
Like
anyway, I digress slightly, but just a bit of culture.
Again,
a bit of culture,
mate. Go on and go online. There's loads and loads of routes out there, and people have created their own. I know we talked about before that was almost like a Peak District 250.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Talked about that before.
That's right.
So there's loads of people got loads of different routes out there, and there's some decent books out there. I can highly recommend the Simon Weir's Bike of Britain. So the South Wales one and Hard Knot Pass route, both of those are in Bike of Britain book. Right. Which, believe it or not, actually has a foreword from the foreword's written by Charley Boorman. We've just kind of come full circle this week. It's so impressive.
We're talking about a bike loop and we've come full circle.
Yes. Also, another book that I can highly recommend and thoroughly enjoyed was The Motorcyclist Guide to Scotland by Jai G. Ferguson. It's another brilliant. It's more of a travel book than a bike book, because he talks about different types of accommodation and the etiquette and all that, Scottish etiquette and stuff. And then he talks about the midges and the different types of beasties and stuff you get. So it's quite good. But also each route comes with, he puts on recommendations for further reading. Not so much about the route, but about what you would see in that route. So if there's something special, he's went to the effort of researching a book to tell you there's a book on it. And he also provides you with a soundtrack for each route with a QR code, so you just scan it and it takes you straight to Spotify, and that's the playlist for that route, which is quite clever.
Unless you've got Apple Music.
In which case you're snooker. But again, if you have a route or particular road that you want us to share with everyone else, then by all means send it in, send us pics, send us videos. We just love to
hear from you.
I feel like we haven't had any listener interaction with a wee while. So,
Yeah, so
we're
get your
probably
roots out for the boys.
Get your roots out for that. Get
Your roots. Yeah, okay.
Which I get your roots.
To be fair, that could
It's
also
pandemic,
be...
my roots are
that's what
terrible.
I just kind of get a decent blue rinse.
You've nailed left. You just shaved that off.
Aye.
Part of the man bun.
So I think summarising the big question of the medium information session is
You were generous with the medium.
I know, medium. Is go out and do not waste whatever time you've got left this year in the bike. There's loads of places to do, whether it's a 50-mile loop or a 4-day excursion, yeah. So
adventure.
Absolutely, yep. Cool.
I know. I'm kind of like, I just want to go and do the 882 now.
Mm-hmm.
If the first decent days, just go, right, I'm just going and just vote. And there's many a time we'll go up that way and maybe get as far as, like, we'll cut off and head towards Inverary, or we'll even just stop at Tarbert and get a coffee at the wee coffee hut, just for the sake of
being
getting out for it. Do you know what I mean? So definitely get out there and get it done.
Yeah, before it gets too nasty.
Well, it's not that. Some of those routes, when the weather descends, is just going to be treacherous. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's certain like Applecross, when the weather comes down, forget it.
Forget it.
I imagine Hard Not Pass.
Yeah. And obviously, a lot of these places you're going for the views and stuff like that, and when the weather's, even when it's just the mist descends, it's like
look, I'm in a cloud.
Exactly, it's like a
bike.
Going there, it's like a fingerless tour guide, pointless. You know what I mean? So.
That's a bad joke. That's a really bad joke.
So I was stumped for anything else to do. See,
stumped. Oh God!
So,
wrap it up.
Hey, I'll give you a knuckle sandwich. Yeah, right. Cool. That's it, folks. That's episode
11
for
the Scottish people.
11, yeah, for the Scottish people of a certain
have a certain ilk.
Yeah. Kind of East Coasty or Ayrshire, kind of 11's kind of great.
Aye.
Now, thank you for listening again to the ramblings of us average bikers this week, and for supporting us on every episode that we do. Thank you so much.
I can't believe we're in double figures.
I know, absolutely, and that's just my waistline. Again, as long as you lovely people out there keep listening, we will continue to be here. Sorry. It's your own fault. This is your own fault, guys. Remember, these are just the opinions of a group of average bikers.
Yeah, massive thanks from all of us here. Again, if you enjoyed it, please like, share, and more importantly, subscribe. If you want to get in touch with questions, possible big question, your roots, you want to get your roots out, send your pictures in or your videos, then you can do so either at averagebikers.outlook.com or get in touch with us via our Facebook page or Instagram. But until then, we will see you when we do the next episode. Maybe next episode might be Charlie.
Well, we're going
It might be Tim Bradshaw.
It might be Tim, yeah.
It might not be. It might just be us again.
But
maybe Tio.
Tio, if you're
we
out there.
haven't talked about Tio. We haven't slipped.
I was
going to say we haven't slipped Tio in, but we haven't managed to get Tio's name in.
No.
We'll leave it right in at the end.
Yeah, so you listen to it and we'll get him going.
Aye.
No,
hi Tio. Hi Tio. Hi Irene.
Hi,
if you're listening.
How the Waynes.
If you're listening.
How the twins. So we'll slip it in at the end.
The twins.
That's what she said. So anyway.
Oh dear.
Sorry.
Anyway,
cockermouth.
Until next time.
Remember, only a biker understands why a dog sticks his head out of a car window.
I think you're going to say cockermouth.